Okay, thank you. Thanks for inviting me tonight. I'm not usually on this side of the camera, so please bear with me. My name is Barney Scholl. I have been licensed since the summer of 1963, so you can figure out how long that's been. I was originally licensed as KN3, the ZFP. I decided to change my call a long time ago. Over the years, I've done a little bit of everything in amateur radio. I've tried most everything, not some of the things like satellites or moon bounce, but I had a good chance to operate once as ST2LA in Khartoum, Sudan. I was on the air for 4 hours over there. And I've also operated with K3LA, his contest station here in Western Pennsylvania. Lived here all my life, and that's sort of my amateur radio hobby. I've done a little bit of everything. I have a little station at home, just a 70-foot tower and a couple of antennas on it. As far as trying to think what else to tell you about myself, on the other side of my life is I graduated from law school and came back to Sharon to practice law. I've been practicing law since 1974, so that's what, 48 years. And I put this together, this presentation together for the law forum at Dayton Hamfest or Hamvention. And I thought it was a good idea. I'd been asking or suggesting we do it for a couple of years down there. I've been involved in that forum for a couple of years and presenting, and I ran it 1 year, but finally they said, let's try it last year. So I put this together. And when I first put it together, it was told I had 7 minutes or 8 minutes to do it. So I tailored that original presentation, which is online. And this one is also, at the end of it, I have a link, which is, it worked the other night. So if you want to get a copy of this, it is available. You can write it down at the end of the presentation, or send me an email and I will respond. So I sort of lengthened it a little bit over the weekend to put a little bit more in it. And sometimes I think at times like this, I try to ask more questions than I can, than I provide answers to. I have 3 pages of resources that provide an awful lot of information about the more of the particulars how to sell equipment. I will mention a little bit about that, but there are a lot of ways to do it. So if I can, and I'm open to questions anytime, and I will try to watch my time, or if I drag on too long, someone stop me. If I can share my screen, I hope, and if I get the right screen, I'll be lucky. Doesn't look, I don't know, does that show up now?
Not yet.
No.
Oh, how about if I click there?
There we go.
What's
Hooray.
up? Is it a title on it?
Yep.
Okay, let's see if it changes now. That's a bigger secret. Nope. I may have to get into the PowerPoint window now. Okay, let's try that. Aha, that works. Did that change, I hope?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I mentioned 3 things to remember from this presentation. Clean things out and organize. And then of course, there's always the standard legal comment about is not legal or tax advice. Talk to your local lawyer and accountant or financial advisor. Now, I wish I could see your hands. I was going to start this out by asking how many people don't have wills, but I can't see your audience anyhow, so I can't ask that question, but that's something to keep in mind. I'm sort of addressed this to hams no longer interested or able to use, can be part of estate planning, which is probably as much as what I'm going to talk about. If someone dies, which often happens, if useful information to someone who handles the estate. The executor, for those unfamiliar, is the person, could be called an executor, administrator, or personal representative, depending on what state you're in, is whose job it is to settle estate, or as I say, collect the assets, pay the bills, and distribute the proceeds. And I talk a little bit about ways to sell amateur radio equipment. I have to start any presentation like this that the important things, whether you're talking about amateur radio or anything else, as a general power of attorney, a will or a will and a trust, and a healthcare power of attorney. Those are, especially the power of attorney. Most states have a generic will if you don't have a will, but most states do not have a default power of attorney. And I can give examples of many instances of estates with problems if people don't have a will. I mean, I deal with them fairly regularly of issues that arise that things go differently than people really wanted to expect. And why this is important, and especially true in amateur radio, because at least most amateurs I know are collectors. And anytime you have a collection of things, I don't care whether it's, they're one of the sources of information. I believe they were talking about tractors. I have an estate right now we're still trying to resolve, involved railroad memorabilia between model trains, books, magazines, items, and it has been going on for longer than it should, just to try to resolve these things. And the other thing that most people sometimes fail to appreciate, that is a lot of things, especially collections, they're only valuable if you can find someone who wants them. I think about QST magazines. And
my plan is,
yes,
works great and how I need it to work. My plan is to quit smoking this weekend.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out how that fits in with this.
Go ahead, Barney.
Okay. I just wondered where the comment came out of.
I
Okay.
presume he's trying to hold off on when somebody would have to make these decisions after he's gone. He doesn't want to leave soon.
Yes. Got my train of thought there a little bit, but saying collectibles, unless you find someone who wants things, sometimes they can be hard to get rid of. Things like even furniture anymore. What I'm being told recently is furniture is almost worthless unless you have something extremely rare. A lot of times we end up having someone to basically clean out a house, and for the cost of cleaning out, they'll get a little bit out of it, but sometimes it costs almost as much to clean a place out as to what's in the house. Doesn't sound right, but it happens. In a general sense, what has to be done when someone passes away? We have to sell, donate, or recycle electronic equipment, dismantle towers, antennas, and often I've run into homes that have things built into them. I saw a presentation a couple of years ago. I believe it was at Visalia DX convention, where they're talking about someone who had done a lot of microwave VHF equipment, and he had his feed lines, everything else literally built into the house. I can't imagine what that's like. Or I mentioned earlier, Tim, K3LR, there you have a case where he has, if you're not familiar with his station, the thing of it is he has 2 towers over 200 feet high. I don't know what he has, 11 or 12 rotors, or more, maybe more on the various towers. I can't imagine what it's going to take to dismantle his station. Luckily, he's younger than I am, so I hope I won't have to deal with it. But that's an example of not everyone's station like that, but it does come into play. We should be notifying the FCC that someone's deceased. These topics I'm going to hit after I go over them this way. We should report the passing the ARL for getting put in QST. And the question is, does your family have knowledge to do all this? And of course, it all depends on how much stuff we have. Recently, I've run into one particular couple of weeks ago. Someone died, was in their apartment, living alone. They didn't know he died for 7 days. And the apartment was wall-to-wall stuff, believe it or not. And that created it's been an interesting challenge. talking about equipment. Family may not have any idea the value of the equipment. They're unscrupulous people who are going to try to get something for nothing. And at some point, the decision has to be made. Is your concern how to value the equipment, to sell it, or you're going to scrap it or do a donation for it? No matter what you do, you have to come up with some way of figuring out what the value is worth. And again, as I said, collectibles, there can be, we think there's an unlimited market, but if you think about the entire population, amateurs are not a large percentage of the population. Remember that amateur equipment can depreciate like a car as soon as you buy them. The value is determined primarily by supply and demand. Obviously, old Drake equipment, old Collins equipment might have a higher value because of being a collectible, where other things may not. Remember that everything that is removable from the operating position without breaking it may have some financial value. Depends on how much. I'm thinking I have one of my amateur radio friends, K3LA, has had a chance this summer to help clean out one ham who died. It's been sort of his project all summer long. And he's been taking boxes of stuff to different ham fests, to different ham gatherings. And luckily he's willing to do it for probably not a great financial return. He's taken stuff to Michigan, he's sold stuff in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and been able to deliver a lot of it. He's sort of making it a project. He's retired. And there's also the cost, and that can be the financial cost or the time and energy cost to get rid of them, to clean things out and get rid of them. As I said, solutions for equipment, you either sell, you donate them, or even recycle them by throwing away. A lot of auction availabilities if you want to auction stuff off, eBay, maybe Craigslist. I ran across a place called Caring Transitions, which appears to be a franchise across the country. And how I ran into them, someone locally was advertising amateur radio equipment on that site. So it's a company that specializes in cleaning out estates, estate sales, cleaning out homes, and obviously they are willing to deal with amateur radio equipment. I will mention later, there is one company that I'm aware of that deals specifically in amateur radio, and I'll mention that, and I have a link to them later on. You have local or online sites, Hamfest, eHam, QTH are all places to sell things. You can sell collections to potentially a dealer, broker, a consignment place, or you can sell things yourself. If you're hiring a third party, make sure you have a written contract and you understand it. Being an attorney, I'll say anytime you sign a contract, you should make sure you understand it. If not, ask questions. And if that doesn't get you anywhere, go hire an attorney. It's cheaper to hire an attorney to help you understand a contract than to hire him to solve a problem later. As I mentioned before, things removable from the operating position may have some financial value. One of the things that Jim K3LA does is he has been cleaning out this stuff. Often what he does is if it's something that can be repaired, he'll take a little bit of effort to make sure it's working. He was telling me he replaced a power supply for something, so increase the value. If you have someone who's willing to take the time and energy to do that, it will increase the value. So I ran across the comment about having original box in good condition and the paperwork manuals. Obviously, you can keep all that stuff together where people can find it. It makes a lot more sense. That comment also reminded me of one of my own situations it's been 20 years ago. I had, my grandmother was moving out of her house, and my grandmother's basement had collected a lot of things from my childhood. And I found someone who's willing to he took a carload of this stuff to an auction or a flea market. And one of the things that he sold that I couldn't believe was I had a number of plastic models from that I put together growing up. And I had the models, and then I had several shopping bags full of boxes from the models. And I couldn't believe, remember, this was 20 years ago, he was selling the model, just the boxes, for like $2 a piece, which sort of really amazed me. Like anything else, when you sell something yourself, how do you set the price? Hopefully you can find someone to do it. One of the things our club has done is we've had people donate things to our club. Luckily, we have one member in our club who does a lot of flea market selling. And what we have done is we've given him the equipment. People donate it to us. We give it to him. He takes the flea market. He takes a cut and then gives the rest of the money back to the club. Some of the bigger items the club has sold ourselves. Club, if is able to take a donation, that's great, and then it can make money. Remember, there's a time and cost to shipping and packaging and shipping everything. I found this chart in one of the presentations, which I'll mention where it came from. It's a comparison of different ways to sell, and based on speed, effort, and the cost. And just different methods to sell. And a ham-fest or slower, you've got to haul things around. Takes more effort, medium return. So those are someone else's opinion of the different strengths and weaknesses of different ways of selling. If a family is not as concerned about the money it requires from the equipment, there's also always donating equipment. I know that the ARL will take equipment. A lot of local clubs will take equipment individually. I don't know how eBay got stuck in there as far as donating equipment. I'm not sure. I did this all yesterday or Sunday afternoon. I really didn't get a good chance to go through it. Another way to look at it is you may be able to find, if you wanted to keep the entire station intact if you want to donate. Be it a local high school club, college clubs, all might be sources if you want to donate a station in whole. Reminders, if you donate to a 501c3 charitable organization, please consult with your tax advisor to make sure you can deduct it. And if you do, the organization will not set a price for you. All they will do is they will acknowledge if it's over $250, they will acknowledge they received it. It's up to you to set the price for your donation. Again, challenges of manpower, often local clubs. I have come across clubs that have a group who have volunteered to do this, and when someone passes away, they will take it over and deal with it. As I say, our local club has one person who's willing to do it, and we've used that on several occasions. When you talk about recycling, don't forget there is often a cost to recycle. You can't put that CRT tube in the trash, and sometimes you can only certain places will take certain items. I have found around here that often local groups will have special collection for electronic equipment for free. Often you'll have to pay for it too. So that's another consideration. Moving on to the towers, antennas, cables, and build-ins. The one thing I have a friend, W3YQ, who is a professional climber. And I've discussed with him, we've had a number of conversations about the best way to take things down. And often he says that it may have limited salvage value. And we've had friends who have gotten injured on towers that were older, trying to take them down. And I often hear that the best way is to almost just let the tower tip over and fall on the ground. The risk of an older installation may not be worth it. And even if you take stuff down, the value is not as great as you think it is. Comment often if you have a special desk, something built in that is not going to be as easy to get rid of. And it may be physically just getting it out of the house might be the hard thing. And then the other thing to think about is restoration of the space for family use. In other words, if like I'll give you an example. I moved about 20 years ago, and I had probably about 6 to 10 yards of concrete for a self-supporting tower in the yard. When I moved, I moved the tower, but I left the concrete in the yard, sort of covered it up. And but I hope no one ever wants to dig that up. I think they might be surprised. But that is a consideration. All the anything unique we have in our home, if you go to sell that home someday, you need to think about what it's going to take, both energy and cost, to get everything out of the house. So a normal person the average person would want to buy the house. Again, it's going back to somewhat the same solutions, volunteers, local clubs. You can even hire a commercial tower climber, get for a quote price before you get them. And I suppose you could always sell the house as a package. I've seen ads for certain areas of the country where someone had, I think in Florida, I saw one recently that someone had a house and a station for sale. Those are going to be far between probably of the people who want those. And again, remember the cost, especially with towers, the cost may be greater than the value of the property. Some things you can dismantle and sell, 10-year-old coax. What's 10-year-old coax worth? If an antenna's been up 10 years in the air, although I must admit, my own example, I have a Cushcraft tome at 40-meter beam it's on the ground. It's going to go back up this summer or fall. And I am the third owner of that beam. And a beam is probably 30 some years old. And it's been up in the air 3 times now. And it's going to go back up, and it's still surviving. Moving on to the comment about notifying the FCC. It has to be in writing, and they have specific information must be included, can be scanned and uploaded, and there is a link on ARL has a page of more details on how to do that. Likewise, ARL has a form to fill out, and again, specific information must be included. And again, I've included a link to their webpage about that. Generally, other solutions rely on volunteers or friends as we come back to that. The one company that I'm aware of called hamestate.com, and the way they work is you pay them a monthly fee. You join them, you pay them a monthly fee. They come out, I believe they come out, look at the equipment ahead of time. Then when someone passes away and they need to clear out the equipment, they will come in, dismantle everything, sell everything, and they will give you the proceeds minus a commission. So in a sense, you're paying them twice. You're paying them up front to evaluate things, and then when it's time to clean things out. At one time, I understood that someone up in the Erie, Pennsylvania area was doing something, but I tried to find information about his site, and I could not find it. I've often thought you encourage a spouse or partner to get an amateur radio. About 10 years ago, my wife decided that she would get her license. So maybe if I go first, she'll want to keep the equipment there to use it. So it won't be until she passes away. Another, and I've run into this in a case, I won't say whom, but I was part of a discussion of a amateur that really wanted to sell the property as a station, and he was willing to fund a trust to create a club station for a local club or for research, but that is probably, there are probably a few of those across the country, but probably not a lot. Some general things to think about. You can give written instructions to, I'm getting into when you do your wills, to try to simplify your instructions and your desires. It should be they should be in writing, and they should probably be included in your legal documents. I've seen cases where people could designate a separate, again, executive personal representative for the amateur radio equipment. If you're going to do anything, like obviously list the items. If you have a concern of particular things, list the items and decide recipients, whether you're going to pay the executor, and whether anyone would have a right of purchasing the equipment first. Some of the hints to organizing: organize and label all your stuff, make an inventory. Can be done while you're alive, makes it a lot easier if you pass away, and make sure the inventory is available to people. Those are all good hints to organize things, and cleaning out is probably the hardest job, but it can be done at any time. I have several pages of resources. This is more or less where I found stuff to put in here. Some of it were my own experiences. I could probably continue to talk for quite a while about not all amateur related things, but instances that I've run into that have, because of poor planning, have created more dilemmas or issues for people. I'm thinking of one, well, as I say, I could go on. I've got a couple of pages of those. And there was one article that lists a number of articles from QST that have articles, and again, that's a whole list of them. That chart and some of the comments came from a presentation from the Central Massachusetts Amateur Radio Association website that AB2XI had put together. His is probably a lot more detailed about selling equipment than what I have included, but that's a good resource. And again, clean out, organize, and I guess the other thing I always tell people, you're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for your family. And that's what I have. I haven't heard any questions. I'm obviously open for questions. I hope you learned a little bit tonight, or at least got you thinking about things.